Welcome back. Today is Wednesday, and this is day number 3 after spraying the acid stain. The cleanup process is enormous, and it's been a little extra difficult, and part of that is my fault. The floor is black. There's a little bit of movement in it, but not a lot. I'm going to share my experience so anybody else who attempts this can have an understanding of what I think I did right and what I think I did wrong and what I would do differently. I was very patient in the cleaning process. I was very patient in the process of etching it and prepping it. Instead of spraying the acid dye late Sunday night, I should have come in here Monday morning and did test areas. I should have divided that into 3 pieces, gone through and sprayed 100% acid dye, a 50% and a 25%, and I should have observed it after 6 hours to see how it looked and which one was what I wanted. I didn't do that. I based what I did off of watching other people's videos and seeing comments from other people. The first thing is I sprayed late in the day, so it was 12 to 14 hours before I got back to it. That's the first big problem. The second one was I sprayed 100% concentration. I should have done a lighter concentration and I sprayed it too heavily. I should have gone much lighter and come back and done additional coats if necessary. The results that we got in this wing of the house, we love. There's a lot of pattern to it. There's a lot of movement to it. It accentuates the cracks, which is what we wanted. It looks good. We're very pleased with it. Now it's very hazy right now. This room has been cleaned twice. It needs to be cleaned again until the water comes up clear and a white rag goes across it and comes up still white. When you wet it, it gives a very nice pattern. It looks really good. If there was a little bit more movement here, I'd say that I loved it. I did some experimentation yesterday after doing some research online, and I think I know how to fix this and make it okay. The problem is that eats time, that eats resources. The next thing that I wouldn't do the same is I would break this house up into 3 pieces to do the staining. This is 2,500 square feet. For 1 or 2 people, that is just too much to expect that you're going to be able to get back in and get everything neutralized and cleaned up in a reasonable amount of time. The far section of the house took me too long to get in there because I had to work my way across the floor. It took me too long to get into it in order to neutralize it, and it just kept getting darker and darker and darker. And all that residue dried. And when the residue dried hard, there's a lot of places around here where I can get down and scrape the residue off with my knife. But these black buffing pads and the cleaning solution are doing nothing to get it up. This room has been cleaned with the buffer 3 times. I called the rental place and told them that I was looking for a brush that went on the bottom of the buffer to try and clean it a little bit better. He said, yeah, they've got one. I went up there and he gave me this. Apparently he doesn't know much more about buffing a floor than I do, because this is not for cleaning the floor. This is to put a pad underneath of and drive the pad. This is just the driver for a pad. What I need is an actual brush. This morning I spent 3 hours driving round trip to go get this. This is a Flex Scrub brush that has bristles that are impregnated with, I don't know if it's, I'm not sure what they've got in them, but it's an 80 grit. It's like an 80 grit sandpaper. This is supposed to be the equivalent of the black pad on steroids. The brush is supposed to be able to get into all the nooks and crannies, so any unevenness in the cement, it should work itself down into it. And the best part about it is it's supposed to last about 50 times as long as one of those pads. This puppy ain't cheap. This was $1.70. But I've got to get this floor clean, and just doing the same thing I've been doing over and over and over again isn't going to get it done. And it's got this little Looks like a popeet. This little thing comes out. Not really sure what. All right. That goes on there. This piece right here goes down here and clips to it to hold it on properly. So this thing shouldn't go anywhere. It snaps back in. Should be good for business. I got two of these. One of them is 120 grit, one of them is 80 grit. By the way, when I walked in here today, I thought, oh, it feels nice and cool in here. I took a look at the temperature. Yeah, it's 89 degrees inside and it's 94 outside. When the sun's not beating on you, it feels a lot better. This room has been scrubbed out twice. A lot of residue right over here that just hasn't come up. I'm gonna hit it with the pad and then I'm gonna put the vacuum on it and see if I can draw all that stuff out. And if I can, then I'm gonna get on the rest of these rooms, get on the main room, and we should be good to go. I don't know if it'll translate on the camera, but you can pick up the minerals inside, the aggregate inside there, and you can pick up the light patterns that are going through. Now that is exactly the sort of thing that we wanted. We just wanted a little bit more movement. Spot on my rag. That is what I'm trying to get up. And I have not been successful like that with the other stuff I was using. So I think that I made absolutely the right decision by spending my morning driving 3 hours round trip to pick up that pad. This project is stretched out a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I like the results. It's hard work, but it's definitely worth it. Good afternoon, welcome back. Had some other tasks I had to take care of today. I'm all covered in clippings here from running the weed eater, but it's hot. It is hot as a match today. 95 outside in the shade, 89 inside. I would prefer it was 70 degrees inside, but that will come. So what I've got going today, the first thing I want to do is tackle this room. I want to get in this room and do every one of these squares, get all the residue off. Now, here you can see, when you look at it, you can't really see down to the concrete because the stain, there's just a little bit of residue, especially right here. You can see it. If I take my knife, I can scrape it up. And I come up with a little bit on my knife. It just needs to be cleaned better. When you put the water on it, you get a chance to see what it's really going to look like. Over here, I went over this one with that new 80 grit pad. I'm going to have to even it out, going across from side to side. This is that line of glue. And boy, I'll tell you what, Jafana does not like it. This is what it looks like when it's wet, which is pretty much what it's going to look like when it has the acrylic sealer on it. It blends in better, but you can still see it. When I was talking to her about it yesterday, she said, I don't care what you have to do. If you can get rid of it, get rid of it. I warned her that that probably is going to lighten that area because I hit it really heavy with that 80 grit pad, and that's what blended it in a little bit better. But it still stands out a bit. I'm going to try a few things. So I am going to go ahead and see what I can do to get this up out of the cement with this grinding cup wheel. I'm going to exercise proper safety for eyes, hearing, and I'm going to put on a respirator because I don't want to breathe that stuff and I don't want it in my eyes.
I'm using a diamond grinding cup wheel on a 4.5-inch grinder.
That works like a champ.
I tried using water to keep the dust down. As soon as you start grinding, the water is blown away and you're back down to the dry concrete, so it doesn't really do much to help. You'll see me continue to spray water on it because spraying water gives a good approximation of what the floor is going to look like when we put the sealer on it. Variations in color are desirable, but you want them to blend. You don't just want them to be stark like this. So I know that I'm going to have to go back over it, blend the edges, and restain where appropriate. And I apologize for using stain and dye interchangeably. I keep saying dye when what it really is a stain.
All right, that turned out pretty good. I may end up having to widen it out and make it more uniform so that I can just make it into one basic lightened space, and then I'll probably end up putting a little more dye back on it. But unfortunately, that's how it is. I should have done this beforehand. I just did not think it was going to show up as much as it did. So that's what it looks like on that side. That's ugly. It'll be fixed. It's a lot of things. I'm going through here doing remediation. I'm going to fix it and I'm going to come back to it.
Since I had a technique that works for removing the adhesive foam from the cement, I went through and cleaned up the other areas that were bothering us. I used a light concentration of muriatic acid to help loosen up the bond of the stain with the concrete. A very aggressive brush and sponge, and I was able to blend the edges after about 20 or 30 minutes of the muriatic acid sitting there. Again, that was a 1 in 20 solution of muriatic acid. And then the cleaning starts again. Grinding out that adhesive foam from the concrete created quite a mess. Even trying to pre-wet it and vacuum it while I ground it did almost nothing to stop the dust from flying everywhere. The entire room had to be re-cleaned.
Well, I've been doing a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of remediation. This part turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. I can blend it more, but I'm going to wait until Jafana has a chance to look at it this weekend and let her give me an idea of how she'd like me to blend it. I've got these spots over here where there was heavy glue, and again, I can blend those a little more. I can also re-dye them. I did some highlights on a crack. I'm pretty pleased with the way it came out. This is turning out to be pretty much what we were going after. I wish I had discovered that Diamond Cup grinding wheel a little earlier, and that way I could have gotten that taken care of before we stained, and this wouldn't even be an issue. It would have been taken care of, would have been pretty easy. Hopefully somebody out there will benefit from the mistakes that I made. Now, I want to clean this area because this area is really dirty. There's a lot of residue. If Jafana was here, she would help me. I picked up these little furniture dollies today when I was at the store getting that grinding wheel. I should be able to get them underneath there if I can lift this thing and slide one underneath. I really don't know if I can lift this thing and hold it up with one foot while I slide it with the other. So I don't know how this is gonna go. This Swiss stove weighs well over 500 pounds, and that's a lot. So this is not feeling like it's a good idea already. that was brilliant. That did not work out at all. Alright, well, that is good just like that. Let's try this again. Alright. That sucked, but it's on there. Now, when I pick it up from the other side, it's got wheels on it. Theoretically, I should be able to pick it up and just move back and set it into the cups at the same time. This is one of those instances where, place your bets, guys. Put something in the comments there. Am I going to be able to pull this off, or am I going to screw this up royally? Alright, so if I can lift it up and just move it backward. Well, I got one, I missed the other. Now I'm off both of them. There we are. It worked. Excellent. I knew that was going to work. That went really well. It's nice to have some success. Now that looks pretty good, but that's just one pass, and I'm going to make several passes. Because of the abrasive nature of that 120 grit pad that I'm using, my next pass is going to go side to side this way. Over here, it's pretty clear, but over in this area, I see some spots where there's definitely a fair amount of residue left. Now I made a pretty quick pass because I figured that I would get a lot of stuff up, and I wanted to get it vacuumed so I didn't track it around. I've probably got about 10 gallons of water that I vacuumed up today while cleaning in here, so I've got to go ahead and get that emptied out before I do anything else.
When Jafana saw the results from me grinding out the glue in the other rooms, she wanted me to go ahead and make some changes in the bedroom and some of the other sections of the house. There were some spots on the floor that she wasn't happy with. So we went ahead and ground them out, got them all cleaned up, and then started re-dyeing them.
We're sitting out on the porch, trying to relax, not covering the floor up completely when we were doing the foam and having it get in the cement. That got me bad because that was a big fix.
Not that big though. You fixed that really comparatively.
We had to scrub it with muriatic acid. We had to re-dye it. Sometimes we had to re-dye it, then put muriatic acid on it, then re-dye it again.
But it looks really good. It looks kind of like a cloud, and it looks
really good.
The movement looks beautiful. But the stain in the first place.
Yeah,
like,
it should have been 50%.
Yeah, we used 100% stain.
And it should, and we found the sweet spot is somewhere between like 4 and 6 hours.
Yes, so we shouldn't have left it overnight.
Yeah, no way. Cut it into 3 pieces. You know, it's 2,500 square foot house. There's 3 sections to the house. Do a section at a time. In fact, if we did a section at a time, you probably could come in the morning early, between 6 and 7, spray. That's going to take you about an hour. Then go do something else in the farm. Come back after like 3.5 hours and start checking it, and then neutralize it, clean it, start cleaning, and you could probably have it basically cleaned by the end of that day. So 3 days instead of an extra 2 weeks.
If the instructions weren't like that, and like we should have been on site watching the stain, and we didn't know that, but now we do. And then cleaning. So I would have cleaned with ammonia this time. So
we neutralized with the Eagle brand neutralizer, degreaser, and cleaner. And
at
so
what strength did we use?
1/5.
We did.
So it was 1 to 4.
It still was too much.
It was way too much, and we
Too
put it down.
concentrated.
We put it down too strong. We put it down too late. I got in there in the morning, and it was just me. There was no way to get across the whole house and get everything done. As you're trying to work your way across the house, the area that I put the stain on first was the area that I got to last. So it had the longest amount of time for the acid to get into the minerals and work in the stain, and that part got really dark and started to dry. And once it starts to dry, it's like shellac, and you cannot get it out. Like literally, I was literally cutting it off the floor with my knife. It was so thick. So we had to go get those crazy pads. Very expensive, eats a lot of time.
We rented the buffer for how long?
Yeah, I'm on a monthly rental on the buffer is what it is.
Still, the cost of the floor is not going to be that much. All of it was fixable. I think it's going to be gorgeous.
It's going to be pretty.
But in the end, like, if we had to do this over, the garage will be much easier.
The biggest thing about it is when you're screwing around with the floor, you're not building. Like, none of the other stuff is happening, so everything stops.
But he still thinks this is the worst part of this build, and
Yeah.
I am telling him it is not. Plumbing, digging the plumbing out of the dirt. And a lot of this is just trust. Like, it's his build, really. In the end, I'm helping, but it's really his build because he has the vision, he has some knowledge.
Some.
So there's some knowledge there. Digging in the dirt for plumbing, I am thinking this just completely sucks. Because I think this is not a lot of fun right now, and I hope it passes, but I'm really mad right now.
Let me see if I can get a light.
So after this, we are moving on.
We've been at this almost 2 years now. Not counting the foundation. So the plumbing, when we say plumbing, the plumbing we've done so far is waste plumbing. And so we got all of that in. We got our hydronic lines in, and we got the foundation built, and that was a couple of years ago, and then it sat. And then when we got back to it was almost 2 years ago.
And the reason why it sat is because we moved out of the house we were living in, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. So we had to do that work. So we were actually commuting back to our old house, renovating some things,
Yeah.
and then, which you didn't like at all. You hated.
Yes.
And so it was a thing of just sheer willpower to
It's an hour and a half away. So
go back.
Every weekend we would go there and work all weekend and then come back here. Yeah, it was not good. It was terrible.
And we had 3 teenagers at the time, so a lot of things pop up with teenagers that you have to take care of, and they're time consuming. They're very time consuming.
Yeah.
We had planned that our youngest was going to live in this house. We actually thought she was going to.
We thought she was going to spend a year with us.
We still call it Lauren's room, and it's not even Lauren's room.
Yeah.
So she has graduated high school and gone to college. And we still call it Lauren's room. I just think I need some pretty right now. So these floors, they better turn out really pretty.
No pressure.
Not at all. But I do think they're going to turn out amazing because you can see the movement in them when you put the water on the floor. And
there was more movement in the main room than we thought. It's
Yeah.
just that there was so much residue dried on it that we had to basically scrub our way down to it.
I really hope this helps someone else out with
Oh,
staining
yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
I really...
And if you're having trouble trying to get like some kind of glue or something out of cement, trying to figure out what to do, that diamond cup is the bomb. I mean, that thing worked like a champ. Hope that helps.
And we'll see what the floors look like.
Yeah, well, we'll start that tomorrow. See y'all next week.
Good night.
Thought I was plugged in. It's going to help if I put this pad on the bottom of it too.
Welcome back. Today is Thursday. No, it isn't.